How's everyone doing? It's January 2nd. It's crazy to start on January 2nd. I wasn't expecting to start that quickly, and I was actually on vacation when Tony reached out, and I decided, you know what, I just got to be accountable and just do it. And so I said yes, and really didn't have time to prepare. But the good news for you is that I've done this before. So the skills I'm going to talk about here are basically skills that I talk about in my course. And I chose 3 that should help you guys learn any types of skill more easily. So I saw Rick say he wants to learn everything in the chat. And I'm the same. I've been trying to learn. I've been striving to learn 3 new skills every month, and I've been doing that for 2 years. It's been working great. The 3rd year was a bit harder because I had a son, and I didn't expect that it would change my life as much as it did. So it was a bit harder to follow through on that. But I'm hoping now in 2021 that I'll keep the momentum going and do it right. Yeah, you're right. That's a skill. Parenting is probably the hardest skill that I've learned, really. My son had a bunch of different, just tiny little problems to begin with, but they just made it so it was a lot harder than I expected, even though I had read all the books, I watched videos and all that kind of stuff. It's just one thing that, it's just one of those skills that unless you jump into it, unless you have the kid, then you can't practice, right? You need the kid to practice. So parenthood is a tough skill. Editing videos, mix color, tap dance, nice, and sing. The cool thing about tap dancing, I kind of want to learn it just because who learned it again? I mentioned in one of my articles, it was a basketball player. And he learned to tap dance because he had problems on his ankles. And one of the best ways to make it stronger was to learn to tap dance. And I thought that's such a cool idea. So maybe one day I'm going to learn to tap dance. Who knows? Editing videos really fun. Really, really fun. I use DaVinci Resolve for 6 months. It's free. It's really, really nice. There's other good stuff too. Wow, some really cool skills in there. Learn to concentrate. That's a very, very important one. I think there's a session happening actually. Was it this morning with Nur about like being undistractable? I missed it, but it felt like a good one. Deep working, definitely. Retaining info, yeah. The 3 skills I'm going to talk about in here are going to help you retain information. Reading tarot cards, that's cool. Reiki. I know someone who learned Reiki. He might be online right now, actually. Is he here? No, he's not here. Cool skill. Yeah. In my sleep. That's interesting. I like that. Playing guitar. Got my ukulele here. I'm so bad. I'm so bad at it. I'm not even going to try with you guys. Motion graphics. That's cool. Meditation. That's a skill I learned in January. Yeah, January 2018. It was so tough. So tough for me. Some people have it easy. People found it funny when I said, like, I can't meditate. They told me, you just need to not think, but my brain, it just can't stop. 1 p.m. rule for using tech. I like this. Nice. Nurse session was good. Yeah, everything's recorded too, so I didn't feel too bad about missing it. We're all going to be able to see it. Music theory, how to sing better. I once wanted to learn to sing, mostly for my son, but I actually do kind of like singing. So maybe something I'll do one day as well. Landscape photography, that's a nice one. Breath work, yeah, that's good. All right, I'm going to start now, and let's see how this works. How many sessions have you guys joined so far? This is actually my first one. I wanted to do more, but I just didn't find the time. 6? Good. Let's see. I think now you should be seeing something crazy happening. So I'm going to switch, and hopefully that's better. But I can't see the chat anymore. Yeah, okay. Wow, 12. That's awesome. You guys are great. January 2nd was tough for me. first day after what 10 days of vacation. It was just very rare for me. All right, I think you should be seeing it. If you do see it, please say yes. I'm going to switch back to the chat just to make sure, because I only have one screen here. All right, Mo, yes. Lauren, okay. All right. I'll switch. All right, I typically do this in an hour, and it's typically 10 skills. So I'm not sure how long this is going to last. I think we're going to have some time at the end. So if you have any questions on how to learn, what skills to learn, or a specific skill that I've learned, maybe I can help as well. I call those skills because these are things that you can learn to get better at. And for me, that's it. Like, a skill is just something you can get better at. And so pretty much anything is a skill. So the first one is spaced repetition. Many of you are probably familiar with that. People use it as a concept and not so much as a skill. I like to use it as a skill because it's really something that the first time you use it, it feels clunky and like it feels like work to actually do it. But as any kind of habit that you build, it gets easier over time. So that is a skill for that reason. And so the concept starts with the forgetting curve here. It's the blue line here. And basically it says that over time you forget what you just read or watched or heard, right? It's pretty dramatic when you look at this curve here. There's an actual formula for it, but basically after 24 hours, you've lost about 25%. You've lost about 75% of what you just read or heard or watched. This is pretty dramatic. And if you do nothing about it, which is what most people do, and I know I did that too, after a month, you basically don't remember any of it. And I know for sure this is true because I remember when I was in school, I studied before the exam and never recalled again. I really just practiced the skill of test taking. And I had good grades, but if you ask me a month later, I had no idea what I had done. So the principle behind spaced repetition is kind of simple, really. The science behind it narrowed it down to 4 different recollection times you should do. One is immediately after you read or watched or listened to the material. And that's without actually going back to the material. So try to recall from memory what you just read. So if you read a chapter in a book, instead of looking at your highlights or your notes or that kind of stuff, you go back. You don't go back. Sorry. You basically close the book and you try to recollect from memory, and you can write it down. And that's going to help you boost it back up to what you basically learned. So it wouldn't be 100% in that curve. It says 100%. It would probably be closer to 80 or 90. And then it's going to go down again. That curve just keeps repeating, right? So you got to do it again 24 hours later, and then a week later, and then a month later. So there's no need to do it every day. Your brain starts to make these connections more easily after. And you see from that graph too, the curve is less steep. So after a month, it's going to be much harder to lose what you so if you practice if you recall after a month, it's going to be much harder for you to forget, which is great. This is great. And like there are apps for this. So there's Anki, which is the most popular. There's a few variations of this one. It is a bit clunky at first. If you don't like it, there's other spaced repetition apps. There's most of you are probably familiar with Duolingo for language learning. So Duolingo uses that kind of principle when you see your progress getting dropped, right? You look at your level and you're like, hey, wait, I had 4 in past tense in Spanish. All of a sudden it's at 3. What's up with that? And that's really because they use the concept of spaced repetition. So they probably check that after a week of not recalling, you should probably get your levels back up. So the way you should use this is basically when you on your next study session, just add it to the app. Add what you want to remember. So you don't need to like write the whole thing. You can write the concept that you want to remember. For example, past tense in Spanish. For video editing, it could be just a way to do something like adding blur effect, for example. And then in the app, you can also specify resources that you want to check back. If you don't want to use an app, one thing that I do is I use a calendar. And I just mark, like, for example, today, if I learned about SEO this morning, some concepts of SEO, then I would just write in my calendar on the next day. So 24 hours later, I'll write SEO and I'll repeat that a week after and a month after. And I think I have an image showing that. Yeah, exactly, right here. So this is an old screenshot. I was working on something related to learning. And so I looked at the concept here. It was on a Saturday, so I duplicated it for the next 24 hours here. And after a week and after a month. So you can pre-populate your calendar like this with different concepts. So I was using the same calendar that I typically use for my calls, but you can have a calendar specifically for that if that gets too cluttered. Other things to consider, again, like for most things in life, don't procrastinate. If it's a skill, as I said, like the more you do it, the less you're going to have to think about it, the more natural it will be. And so just skipping one time seem like not much, but like in retrospect, like it takes a lot harder to get back into it. So you got to build the habit of doing that. And when you do, you'll realize how much more you remember. So anytime you read an article or a book for the purpose of learning something, you should think about using this. And same with videos. Basically, when you read a concept in a book or you watch a video, you really only want to ask you this question: is this something I want to memorize? And if the answer is yes, then yes, for sure, do spaced repetition. I ask myself this question all the time, really. All right, note taking. So this is a skill that seems strange because ever since we were in school, we've been taking notes. The funny thing about that is no one ever thought, like no one told us this is how you should take notes. And some of the key studies mention that the more senses you involve, the better your note taking is going to be. And this is also why they say that it's better to take notes using pen and paper with your hand. The motion of your hand actually makes you remember better than typing on a computer. So you can do some note taking using some light music. Sight is obviously very important. If you can like just if you're able to draw instead of writing the words, that's even better. Like draw a concept. I'm gonna check in my notebook here if I've got something. I do that pretty frequently, but this is a pretty new notebook. Yeah, I've got this here. I don't know if you guys are going to see it. I've got a guy pushing a boulder, which was, what was I reflecting on? I don't remember what I was reflecting on, and I was reflecting on throwing a basketball, and I drew it, and I drew like the motion of the ball and the guy jumping. So the more drawings you can make, like very simple drawings like what I do, you're going to remember much better. There's some myths you should know. So a lot of people copy or transcribe exactly what they hear or read. This is actually not super effective. So it's better to write in your own words when you can, because that forces you to reflect on what you just read. You should also not copy paste. I know I've been doing. I've done that a lot in the past, like copy paste in a notebook, and then I figured I'm just going to read it someday. That someday never comes. And even if it comes, like you go back to it, but you didn't make the effort. You didn't use your 5 senses to do it. So your brain didn't associate that, the connection there. Highlighting text helps you remember what's important. So again, we do that a lot. I've got highlighters. I highlight all the time, but highlighting is actually proven to not be as effective as a lot of people think. Because it's very similar to the concept of copy pasting. You don't really make an effort. You think it's important, you highlight, and then you move on, or then you go look at it again and you study only your highlights. But the problem is, at the moment you highlight something, you're not even sure if it's the most important thing that you can learn. You're just learning. So it's better to find highlights from people in the field than actually you highlighting what's important. So in general, as I said, you should prefer taking notes using handwritten notes over typing on a computer, just to involve more senses. Write notes in the margin of books. So I know I have like Evernote and Notion and that kind of stuff where I used to write notes about the books that I was reading, but it's better to do it exactly at the location where it actually matters. So if you're on page 29 and you've got something to write there, you've got a note to add, then it's better to put it in the margin than out of context in your notebook or an app. If you do it in the app or a notebook, then you can just specify, for example, page 29, second paragraph. Then it's okay, but you still need the reference material. And yeah, avoid copying text. So reword in your own words. Highlighting text. Similar to what I just mentioned, when you do highlight, it's much better if you write in the margin why you highlighted in the first place. Because your state of mind when you read something is not the same when you read it the second time. So you may not remember why you highlighted, but you still study your highlight, but you don't know why you study your highlight. So if you do highlight, take a note in the margin saying, this is the reason why I wrote this. And if you do study your highlights, scratch those that don't seem relevant anymore, right? Sometimes in hindsight, when you learn more about the topic, you realize this wasn't as important as I thought it was. It's normal, it happens all the time. So find a way in your notes to you can put an X or whatever sign you want to put. Like I put an X, so put an X saying that this doesn't matter to me anymore, because you can't remove a highlight. It's there. It stays forever. And one of the things that I do, I started that, I think it was last year. It's been a year now. So when I do highlight, I put my notes in the margin before I start my reading session. Let's say I read. So right now I'm reading this book, Leonardo da Vinci. I love this book. Before starting my reading session, I'd go back to the previous chapter and review the highlights. Basically, just reread them and try to get them in my mind. And that has been really, really solid for me. Review questions. This one's the best one, actually. So instead of writing what you learn, write a question to your future self about the material, and then you can use that using the spaced repetition principle, right? So you put that in the calendar, let's say 24 hours from now and a week from now, and instead of just putting the concept, you could add questions regarding that. So how would I edit using blur in my video? How would I take a landscape photo of sunrise, for example? And so instead of just saying, like, this is how you do it, you ask the question instead. And that's going to force your brain to think about this a lot more. And obviously, the more you think, the more these connections are actually happening. And the more you're going to remember after. And last point here. Yeah, I mentioned that before. So if you do take notes, like highlights and that kind of stuff, and you put that in Note app or your notebook, it's better to note the source of the answer than to actually write the answer. Again, just to get your brain working. So you can do that in flashcards too, which is quite a popular way. The third and last one, what time is it? All right, 21. Mind mapping. This is something I've started doing in January of last year, and I've done over 800 mind maps. Some are book summaries, some are article summaries, some are, if you've read my articles, you're going to see them spread out on some of them. And this one is for Atomic Habits. It's probably too small for you guys to see, so at least you see the structure a bit here. Mind mapping is, again, it's a skill that you get better at the more you do. So the way I'd recommend you practicing this is go to one of your favorite how-to article, create a mind map of it. If you go to Medium or you go to your favorite source and you find the article good and you want to remember what's in there, it's an amazing way to just get started with mind mapping. You can do mind maps of book reviews, which have been really good for me too. I typically do 4-minute books because it's shorter, and so they're easier to do. But Blinkist has a massive collection. If you want to start from there, this is a great way to practice. And while you practice, you're going to learn so much. My recommendation when you start is to do one every day. So at first it might take you, for a 4-minute article, it might take you up to 30 minutes. But after you've done it for a while, it probably takes me 5 minutes. So you do get a lot better at this. What I like about mind maps is you can also share with people and you can talk about this. You can have a discussion over a mind map. And that's harder to do with an article or a book review. If you know experts in the field, I've asked some people before to review my mind map and asked them, am I right? Is this the right way to learn something? And usually when the experts find this mind map, they're actually quite interested and they're willing to share their knowledge. Another trick, if you want to keep it as small as possible, so not big paragraphs, like a few keywords, and you want to limit it to 1 page if printed. Like, for example, this one on 1 page, if printed, that's about as big as you should go. And if you look, the paragraphs are not that big. And I made a summary of this talk, so I'm going to click here. You guys should be seeing it. I should mention again, too, that I don't see the chat right now, just because I only have one screen. So if I miss what you guys are saying, that's the reason. But yeah, I made a summary here of this talk, and it looks like this. It could look differently depending on who does it, but for spaced repetition, I broke it down into different things that I mentioned. So recalling, using the app, using calendar, and some tips. I mentioned involving the 5 senses for note taking. And you can add some colors. You can add some icons. You can add some numbers, check marks. So basically for me, I always keep the same structure. For things that you should do, I typically put a check mark. for things that you shouldn't do. I put an X and red text. For things that are positive, which there's none in there, but for things that are positive, I'm going to do just an example. I put orange, not orange, I put yellow and thumbs up sign. So as you keep building these mind maps, you create your own library of tools to make it more visually appealing. So this is my way of doing it. There's so much to mind mapping, and it's such a good good practice. Like, it makes you synthesize what you read and think about, is this important? Should I include it? Especially if you limit to one page, right? And that's the summary. Let's see if I can. I'll copy it and put it in the chat after. So for those who know me from Medium, I've left Medium officially as of basically today. It has been 3 years, so that was a good time. That was a good time. As most things in life for me, 3 years is a long time, and so it's time for me to move on. But I've got my own platform here on daneforrest.com, and I'm actively building Skill Up Academy, which is basically a resource of 400 different skills that we're supporting, and we're building the pages currently. If you're interested in the course, no pressure here, but the link is right here on my website. And if you created a coupon code specifically for this event, so if you click on here, buy for blah, 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 the coupon is, does it show here? Yeah, I already applied it, but the coupon is, let me put it on the chat, actually, in the chat. It's Momentum 2021. That's the code. No pressure there, though. I didn't do this talk to get some sales. I just love to share that stuff. I'm gonna share the summary here for those who might be interested in having an example. You can copy it, so it's read only, but I'm pretty sure you can copy it. I'm gonna stop screen sharing if I can. All right, I'm back. There's less sun this time, or rather the sun has moved around. Yeah, these are the 3 skills. So spaced repetition, make it a habit as much as you can. Like, breathing after 24 hours, a week, a month. And after a month, actually, I didn't mention that, but you don't need to repeat the next month. You can repeat about 6 months later. There's a really, really good book. This is where I learned it from initially. It's called How We Learn. I'm going to put it here, by Benedict Carey. Really, really good book. What else? You guys know about Ultra Learning? Ultra Learning is really interesting too, by Scott Young. Some really good stuff by Barbara Oakley too. A lot of the stuff that I learned really came from research from those people. If you guys know Michael Simmons, great stuff from him. Yeah, for note taking, I hope you learned something from there. I used to think that I knew how to take notes, and the moment I switched this mentality of taking notes in the margins and taking the context, it changed everything for me. And mind mapping too, like going from text to something that's more visual, it makes the connection so much easier. Like, you see the mental image, and they do say that an image is worth 1,000 words, right? And it's true. It was proven that everyone is a visual learner. You might have a preference for audio or kinesthetic, but everyone is a visual learner with no exception. And the mind maps help you see it visually, and you can put images too in the mind maps. I do that sometimes. Whatever image for you that is vivid to the context, yeah, do it. Actually, what time is it? Oh man, 30 minutes already. All right, I guess we didn't have time for Q&A. I guess I missed a bunch of the chat too. Yeah, I'm using MindMeister, exactly. Use Xmine. Yeah, it's true. I didn't mention any of my mapping app I was using. Yeah, I'm using MindMeister. It's I don't particularly have a good reason for using it, more so than it's the first one I discovered, and it was online. It was cheap. That's pretty much the only reason I use it. I'm also an affiliate for them now, but it's good. I love it. Yeah, you're right, Rivka. Yeah, the visual flow and the logic and the rationale behind it, exactly. Uh, the pitfall there, though, is that when you learn something, uh, you might see the logic a certain way, but your first mind map's not necessarily going to be accurate, and so for a lot of the stuff that you learn, it's good to review your mind map once in a while, just like with the new logic that you know. All right. Yeah, I didn't expect 30 minutes to go that fast. Are you guys going to another session right now? I don't know if I'm going to be booted or something. Oh, I like that, Rivka. Yeah. Yeah, I used to draw them, and I realized that I needed quite a few drafts to make it happen. I got lazy, but you're right. You're absolutely right. If you draw your own maps, that involves more senses. That's better. All right. Well, I don't typically I don't have to go. So if anyone has questions, I can stay for another 15 minutes. If you've got other sessions to go, please do. I'm not holding anyone back. No questions on ukulele though. I'm not good enough. I tried. I've been learning this instrument. It's called cajon. There's an accent on the O. Let's see if I can do the accent here. Yeah, I can do the accent. Cajon. Percussion instrument. It's been a blast. It's been a blast. My son loves it. Yeah, have a good day too, Rivka. All right, anyone has questions? I stopped drinking coffee. This is hot water. I don't know if you guys drink a lot of coffee, but I figured I needed a little break for a month. So hot water for the month. Yeah, Garen, that's a good strategy. That's a good strategy. I started with 3, just so there's this concept of multiple intelligences. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I'm just going to type the name of the researcher, Howard Gardner, multiple intelligences. And basically in there, he shows that there's 8 different types of intelligences. It's he proved after that it was actually not accurate, but I think the concept is still good, where basically when you work different parts of your brain, you use different energy. And what I notice is that if I practice, so most of my work is logical. I'm a software engineer. So if I practice logical stuff in the morning, then I would be tired by the end of the day. If I tried that and I couldn't stick to it, I figured I might as well try to work different parts of my brain. And so I started with drawing, learning Spanish, and what was the third one? Some machine learning stuff. And by dividing all these different parts of my brain, I was actually getting more energy from it. That's the reason I took 3 to start with. But yeah, one a month is a good strategy. Most people can't find the time that I was able to find back then. I was working. I was in Cambodia working remotely, and I had nothing else to do, so I was able to find 2 hours of free time. But for most people, it's hard to find that time. So one is very good. I have a friend who does. So I typically do a block of 15 hours for each skill in a month. But I have a friend who practices for 100 hours for each of the skills he's learning. This is a good approach too. You can get a lot more deep in there. It obviously takes more than a month. But the problem I have with 100 hours is you don't know if you're going to like it to start with, right? In 15 hours, I feel like it's the right amount of time to say, I tried. I didn't give up. I tried for 15 hours. I don't like it. I can move on. So I like the 15 hours for that reason, to discover like what I like to do and what I'm good at too. Right? Yeah. Yeah, because before, like someone mentioned meditation earlier. Someone mentioned that, and I had tried meditation before, and I tried for like a few times during the year, and I gave up every time. And when I decided, you know what, I'm going to stick to 15 hours of practice, and until I'm done with the 15 hours, I won't give up. And it took me about 13 hours to actually get decent at it. And if I stopped before, then I wouldn't know. So I'm happy. I'm happy with that 15 hour. Any other questions? Wow. Yeah. In 100 days for sure, that most things becomes a habit in 100 days. The average is actually 66 days, if I remember, but the range is 18 to don't remember the number, but for something to become a habit, the range is 18 to 260 something days. Yeah, it depends on the research. But yeah, for me, meditation was about that, 21 and 30. But it's true, different habits took different time. Anyone else? All right. I think there's a lag in the chat too. So I'm not sure. There used to be, like, I remember I was one of the very first testers on Hopin, and there was a 30-second lag. That was pretty awkward at the start. You're like, "Hello, is anyone there?" And then you waited 30 seconds to actually get an answer, but the video feed was live. So I don't know if it's still the same here. It seems to be really fast now. All right. Doesn't seem to be any more questions. So thank you guys for coming. There's only 10 people left, so should have thanked people before they left. But thanks for coming. Thanks for staying. And hope you guys have a wonderful first week of 2021. It's going to be a good year.